On today's episode, I had the privilege and honor to speak with Dr. Mark Leondires. Dr. L is the founder, medical director, and partner in reproductive endocrinology at Illume Fertility in Connecticut and New York. Dr. L serves as a member of Resolve's Physician Council and a member of ASRM's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Task Force. In 2012, he also founded GayParentsToBe.com as a resource to advocate for the LGBTQIA+ community. Dr. L resides in Connecticut with his husband, Greg, whom he married in 2010, and their two sons. And it was his experience as a gay dad through egg donation and surrogacy himself that led him to create this resource. But it didn't stop there, and he has since gone on to co-author a book with Lisa Schuman, LCSW, Building Your Family, the Complete Guide to Donor Conception. In this book, Dr. L's passion for all aspects of family building and not just the medicine is so apparent, and you will hear that in our conversation. We could have talked for hours, but I am so excited for you to listen to this episode. Whether you are building your family through a third party, or you love someone who is, Dr. L's call for representation, kindness, and humanity, no matter who you are and where you are in this process, is something we at Egg Donor and Surrogate Solutions stands by. And we are so grateful to partner with the voices and advocates like Dr. Mark Leondires. So please enjoy. Me, you, and who? Who knew it would take more than two people to have a baby? In a world where infertility is no longer a taboo topic, this podcast will take you through all of the different aspects of surrogacy and egg donation through the lens of many who walk this journey in different ways. My name is Whitney Hall, and I am a two-time surrogate, now turned surrogacy coordinator for Egg Donor and Surrogate Solutions, the very agency I used when I chose to carry for two amazing families. With this podcast, it is our goal to help guide and support you as you learn about what it takes to grow a family in an alternative way, as well as hear inspiring and beautiful stories of how this path has changed lives forever. We can't wait for you to hear about just one more way happy families are created every day. Well, Dr. L, thank you for being here. I know, just amongst your crazy busy schedule, and I know computer breakdowns and just all of that in general. So I really just super appreciate you giving your time to us.
Yeah, I was actually on a call this morning with the surrogacy intended parent. Within the first 3 minutes, I got the blue screen of death.
Oh, no.
I'm like, oh.
This is not helpful during this time. Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
You have to be able to bob and weave. And you know, that's actually what it's like to do a surrogacy journey.
I could not say that. I mean, you're so correct. Absolutely. That's like the greatest, yep, you got to bob and weave.
One of the things I regularly say is that the science behind a surrogacy journey is pretty well worked out, but the people are complicated.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm. No, you're so right.
Everybody comes to it from a different place.
Yeah, no, you're so right. You're so right. So before we get there, I want to let's go back. What got you down your path to medicine, and then just ultimately what led you to reproductive endocrinology in the first place?
Well, I was always that kid who had like the bug collection, and was fascinated by animals and so on. And you know, as far as like becoming a doctor, when I went to college, I was pre-med, but I was also a history major. And then my dad had a heart attack when I was a freshman in college, and I think that kind of led me down that pathway to try to figure it out. And then you know, in medical school, we do these rotations. You know, you do a year of rotations. So my last rotation was OBGYN. You know, I have three brothers. I don't know a lot about OBGYN. And I spent 1 week on reproductive endocrinology. And I'm like, this is awesome. It's got social implications. It's high science. It's rapidly changing.
Yeah.
I don't really love sick people, so we don't really take care of sick people. And I like, you know, things that you can measure. So you can measure whether it's successful or not, right? So that kind of said, okay, well, I want to be a reproductive endocrinologist. So the only way you can get there is by delivering babies. So, I got into
Mm-hmm.
an residency program, and then I got into a fellowship. People probably aren't aware there's only about 40 fellowship spots across the country at any one year. So it's
Mm.
really fortunate to be able to get in. And then, I was in the Army too, so I did some Army payback, and then I was at the National Institutes of Health, and then I was the medical director of the Armed Forces IVF program, and then
Wow.
I got recruited for this job in Connecticut, and I've started here in May 1st, 2002. So I'm coming up on 22 years, I guess.
Congratulations.
When I got here, it was kind of struggling, and we're now 9 doctors, 5 offices, soon to be 6, and it works. The
Yeah.
reproductive medicine is something that is my life and passion. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, you said it best, right? Like it is your life, not only just in work, but then you personally went from being doctor to being patient. How was that?
well, I always wanted to be a dad, right? And
Yeah.
you know, within the whole LGBT community, there's a spectrum, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
but for me, it took me a while to basically come out and kind of be my true self. And then, it's like, well, how are we going to do this, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm a fertility doctor. You'd think I'd know. And so you can, we talk about this a little bit in the book, but basically, I was going to go forward as a single dad to be in my
Sure.
mid 30s. And that
Yeah,
was
let
kind of,
me pause you real quick. The book that you're referencing is the Building Your Family: The Complete Guide to Donor Conception. And we're definitely going to talk more about it for sure. But yes, I mean, not only does this book kind of give you a lot of those like just nitty gritties, but the thing that I love so much about it is those personal stories, and you were so vulnerable with
yeah.
yours.
Yeah. So basically, long story short, while I was moving forward with this process, I did meet somebody who also wanted to have a child, and then Greg and I went forward with a egg donation surrogacy process. And although I had already been in the field for a long time at that point in time,
Mm-hmm.
recognizing that you need mental health professionals, lawyers, escrow accounts, contracts, egg
Mm-hmm.
surrogates. It doesn't always work. To flip the table and be on the patient side was a really, an eye-opening experience. And
Yeah.
it's so complicated for 2 men to have a baby,
Mm-hmm.
separate from surrogacy, right? I often joke, you have more than 1,000 decisions to make,
Yeah.
right? And
Gosh,
a lot of
yes.
them aren't in your control. And I think that I often say people come to surrogacy from many different pathways. There's the infertility patient that maybe has had recurrent pregnancy loss. There's
Mm-hmm.
the cancer survivor. There's somebody with a genetic condition. There's somebody with heart disease.
Mm-hmm.
There's male couples that just don't have a uterus. There's
Right.
women born without a uterus, right?
Right.
So, but what I saw from my side is that there was a need for back in 2007, 8, 9, like before gay marriage even went through, like
Mm-hmm.
to give the LGBTQ plus community information on where to start. So
Right.
that led, as we percolated through our journey. Thankfully, I have a really supportive entire office here. We
Mm.
founded GayParentsToBe, which is a all-inclusive LGBTQ site about where to start, whether you're, gay, queer, trans, lesbian, however you want to identify. And
Mm-hmm.
and I will often say that while I was took me a while to be my true self. Once you have children, like you have to own it. Right?
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
in some ways, I guess I came bursting out of the closet. So,
I love it. I love it. I love it.
as far as like helping people start a family, that's my gig, and that's what I do, and I'm really passionate about it, and will advocate for it, and will, do the extra time necessary to make things happen. And I think and I think that shows in the patients I've taken care of. I mean, one of the things I'm really happy about is there's a lot more people being me out there.
Yeah.
When I started this, there were only 3, out gay reproductive endocrinologists, and only 1 who had kids. Now there's more of me. I know you interviewed Dan earlier.
Yeah.
So, and the other part of the story, there's more surrogacy providers that have doors open to everybody, right? And that's amazing. And I mean, you may or may not be aware that you can watch surrogacy grow year over year over year, right?
Yeah.
But in the past couple years, the majority of surrogacy journeys do involve, dads to be, right?
Yeah.
So that's an important thing. The other part of the story is single people, male or female, as well as heterosexual couples are using surrogacy more. So it's more and more accepted. And I think the thing that you guys struggle with the most is where you can find not only women who want to carry a baby for somebody else, but women who are cleared to carry a baby for somebody else. And it is really a huge kind of burden to find those kind of Easter eggs. Somebody's willing to carry the bunny.
Absolutely. I mean, you're hitting so many points. We're gonna unpack some of this. Absolutely. But yeah, I mean, yes, in the seat that I sit in, I get to meet so many women who want to do this, have the heart to do this, and it doesn't always, you're exactly right. It doesn't always work out, whether it's, medically and things like that. But before we, even go into, that fun of it, I mean, you're right. Like you absolutely have just such a passion, for just all of this in general. You experienced challenges this, again, prior to gay marriage. Are you doing this? It wasn't necessarily something that, was as prevalent back then or if it was very hush hush and, just that kind of thing. So what were kind of maybe some of those personal challenges that you experienced that kind of led you to be like, I want to fix this, or I want to at least give somebody a resource that I didn't have? And then maybe since then, I know you kind of talked a little bit about some of those improvements, right? Like you said, there's more of you and, it's becoming more of a topic that people are willing to discuss, but maybe what improvements have you seen from your personal story to now?
Yeah. I mean, I think part of this comes into like why I wrote the book with Lisa Schuman.
Yeah.
I think that in many ways people are like, well, you just need a donor.
Uh-huh.
Right? Whether you're a single person or you're queer or you're a guy with really low sperm count or a woman with diminished ovarian reserve, you just need a donor. But that's really hard.
Yeah.
And acknowledging how hard it is to find a donor and then processing that, you absolutely have to share this with your child for their future well-being. And thinking about it from their perspective of age-appropriate sharing with the child, so they know they were like desperately wanted, they were loved while they were still just hope, right? And taking that and understanding that it breaks my heart sometimes. I talk to people who've looked at 3,000 donors, and in some ways I'll be like, well, maybe they're not ready for this. We have to really walk it back a little bit and say, you're not getting them. You're getting their family tree. And
there you
understand that by getting their family tree and the things you can control, healthy family tree, healthy genetics, good potential, as well as good mental health screening, because those things are not all solely found in our other things. You should have like 5 or 10 donors you can use, right? And I think we are tremendously visual creatures, so we link onto that. But it's almost like you have to find that person that might visually appeal to you, but then almost put that to the side. So like part of, I think, the struggle of moving forward with third-party reproduction is finding a donor. And then, back in 2008, 2009, there was also less visibility for surrogacy.
Mm-hmm.
So, who are these gals that are willing to carry a baby for somebody else? And then how do you trust them? And
yeah. Well, and the sensationalism, right? Like those Lifetime movies don't help. Oh, this is only for celebrities, just all of that. And representation within that and, all of it.
And I'm sure most of the people in the audience have not seen a surrogacy contract, but they're dense. And they talk about every bad thing that can happen. And it's really freaking expensive.
Yeah.
Right? And there's no guarantee. So like processing all that and basically kind of, we're like we have to kind of walk with our patients to get through the process, because there's always that concern of like, what if it doesn't work? Right?
Sure. Sure.
And thankfully, the majority of journeys do work, but not everybody is successful. And so I think that what I saw in our journey with biochemical pregnancy, no endocrine lining, surrogates that had really big life changes in their life, is that this is complicated, and nothing prepared me for it. Nothing in my medical career prepared me for what it was like to be a parent through surrogacy.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's one of the things that's so great that, I love about the website is it looks at all of those aspects. Your book talks about all of those aspects. I just had all of these happy tears when I read, we are a family built with intention and love through the help of many hands and hearts. And that is just, that's third party, right? Like it does take a team. It takes a community. And it isn't just, I need a donor, I need a surrogate, I do point A, B, and C. Like there's so many subs and just all of those factors. And if you don't know where to start, and if you, have other factors to take into account, whether it, gender identification, what hoops you have to jump through. Insurance, the finance of it, just all of it. There's just so many aspects of it. And I think one of the things that I just love so much about your website is you highlight those things, but then you also are like, but here's how we can solve this. And and if we can't solve it, here's some resources that we can figure out how we can get from point A to point B. And all of the subs.
What more personal thing can there be?
Yeah.
Than wanting to bring a child into your life. Right?
Absolutely.
Personalized.
Yeah. No, you're so right. So obviously your clinic is incredibly, open, and you have other clinics who are just trying to figure out how can we be more inclusive? What can we do to make this experience more accessible to those in the LGBTQIA plus community? What would kind of be just your advice, just from professional to a professional?
So part of our onboarding, part of our annual, education also involves LGBTQ competency. So, the everybody from the person who answers the phone to the financial advocate has to have a certain degree of competency, and they might not have walked into your clinic with that. So, understanding, what happens to sexual and gender and racial minorities as they process through the medical system is important. So
Absolutely.
Another part of our onboarding is also for racial minorities. So kind of understanding that, because I think most people that work in a medical office truly actually like to help people. Right? So everybody feels horrible if they make a mistake, and they want to know how not to do that. So taking the time to do LGBTQ plus competency, I think, is really important. And then, looking at your forms and making sure they don't all say he and she and husband and wife, right? And understanding that, if I walk up to your desk, you can't automatically ask me about my female partner, my wife, and trying to really I'm old enough that the pronouns thing is really, really new to me, but to really get comfortable using, they more than he, she, and so on makes it more comfortable. And if you think about it, the trans population is a really small population. But to walk in those shoes has to be incredibly hard. So for them just to walk in the office is incredibly hard.
Absolutely.
I've stood up in a public forum now from 2015, like nobody ever wants to come with a fertility doctor, right?
No,
Nobody,
right.
Nobody wants to be infertile. Never mind, right? If you're somebody who absolutely needs help and wants to have a child, it's really hard, right?
Yeah.
So educating your patients, looking at your forums, and there's one of the things that I don't really like all talk, no action. So just having a rainbow flag on your site and one page on LGBTQ family building doesn't work. You have to have, blow out the different colors of the rainbow. You also have to, put some effort out there. The LGBTQ plus community speaks to each other as well. So if you do a good job with this patient, they're going to tell these patients, right?
Sure.
And so you really have to, you put actions behind your words. And it might not be for everybody, and that's okay, right? And it's also okay to make a mistake, right?
Yes.
It's okay to misspeak someone as long as you own it and you work towards it. One of the things that we do in our electronic medical record is we color code everybody, whether you're only or whether you're trans or whether you're a same-sex couple. It doesn't matter if you're cisgender female, cisgender male, but everybody's color coded. So there's less opportunity for us to make somebody uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I think we all have to, take the time to be inclusive. And I know there's so I'll push back now against DEI and so on. I think the heart of DEI is in the right place. The question is it sometimes everybody makes mistakes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and yeah, again, if the effort is there and the effort is genuine, right, that matters. That matters. Absolutely.
One thing I like to say, which you may have heard this already, is the rainbow flag is for everybody. Not just, it's like we welcome everybody.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how you walk through the door, we're here for you. And I think that's the message from me, my partners, our support, the practice, and that filters all the way down. So, if you want to take care of these patients and improve, access to care, people have to embrace it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. No, I love that. That's so beneficial. Okay. So going back to something that you talked about, whenever you were discussing just the overwhelming, right. Like nobody wants to come to the fertility doctor. So, it just takes guts walking in the door. Now, all of a sudden, we're being met with the 1,000 decisions that we have to make. Some people, step one is, the egg donor process. And I have to admit, I was sweating bullets when I'm reading through the medical recommendations that you were talking about and all of the things. And I was just like, I don't even know if I have, do I need these required? I don't even, oh my gosh, just all of this. I'm just sweating bullets looking through it. So at the end of the day, obviously it's a very personal choice for everyone. And, there is no rainbow unicorn out there as far as the perfect surrogate or the perfect donor or things like that, but there's perfect for that person or that,
right,
those people. What would you say from a physician standpoint would kind of be your highlights, if you will? And then just personally, how did you navigate that overwhelming, hi, here's a database and it's 1,000 pictures plus?
Yeah. I mean, I think that, there's a couple questions you've kind of posited in this. So I think that regarding the overwhelming aspect of just moving forward through a fertility clinic, you need to break things up into manageable pieces, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, if you're an infertility patient and you need a donor and a surrogate, or you just need a surrogate, just understand all this third-party stuff gets lumped in, but what do you exactly need? But if
Absolutely.
we take it down the path of finding a donor, right? I think you, and if you're partnered, have to kind of think about your own heart about what's important to you.
Mm-hmm.
But you need to let your head get you started. Right?
Sure.
So those heart-based decisions, whether somebody, is sporty or musical or, how their profile reads, those are all important, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I think, try to get above the fray and piece by piece. So I think anybody who's going to pursue any part of third-party reproduction really needs to at least have one, maybe two, maybe three, depending on where you are, visit with an experienced mental health professional that has seen hundreds, if not thousands of patients like you, has also seen the other side, the donors and the surrogates, and can help you process your anxiety and perhaps your grief and move you towards acceptance. And I think understanding that if you move forward with a donor cycle, right? Well, you didn't want to do that. So there is some inherent kind of like, well, this kind of sucks that you need to get through, right? And then, to have that person coach you on, what's important. And then there's that anxiety about talking to your child. And that's something that the mental health professionals can do well. So, stepwise if we talk about the most complicated cycle out there, if you need a surrogate, a donor, an IVF, and so on, if you break it up into pieces, well, we need to investigate our sperm source, or if you're going to be the egg source first, right?
Sure.
That all looks okay. And then you need a surrogate and a gamete donor, right? Now, if it takes 12 months to find a surrogate, let's pick your surrogacy agency first and get on that list. Flip the order a little bit, right? Because that's a big decision. It's a $150,000 decision when you get done with it, right? So get my stuff checked out, pick my surrogacy agency and team and so on, and get on that list. So then now I have 12 months.
Not every agency has a list, just by the way. Our agency likes to say we have a bucket. So right. Fun fact.
And then you've got things done, right? Now you can focus on really the big decision and really the only thing you have control over. You don't necessarily have that much control over who's presented to you as a surrogate. You don't necessarily have control over your own gametes and so on and so on. But you do have can exercise control of who's going to be your donor. And it is a final decision once you get there. You can't be like, oh, well, I don't, you're not going to change the genetics. So then take the time to look. And I think you asked, what's it like to start looking at profiles? It is overwhelming. And then you start doing your searches and coning down. But I think, I also find that if you are partnered, to have one person be the seeker and one person be the approver doesn't really work, because the approver always finds something wrong. You have to sit down on a weekend and commit a few hours here and there and hopefully get to 3 to 5 people that have good family medical history, good personal medical history, ideally at least willing to meet the child, hopefully willing to meet you, right? And then, if they've never had mental health screening, that's going to have to be done. And don't fall in love with anybody. This is a donor. You're not getting them. Their sperm or their egg represents a jumbling of 52,000 genes from 5 different generations, and you get what you get. Right? Whitney, do you have siblings?
I do.
So,
yes.
So I have 3 biological siblings.
And I bet you guys don't look anything alike.
No, one of us looks alike. The other 2 don't look alike. We all do different things, and we have the same parents as far as we know, right? So,
right.
You kind of, if you look in families, there's incredible diversity from that rolling of 26,000 dice on each side.
Yeah.
So understand you're having a unique human being. And, one of the things you learn from your kids, one of the things I learned from my, 4-year-old one time is you get what you get.
That's right. You get what you get and you don't throw a fit.
So that being said, the first time you open up that donor search profile, you're going to get it all sweaty. But as you do it 3 or 4 or 5 times and so on, you're going to get there. And understand there are likely, 5 or 10 people that you could match with. And it is the clinic's job is to be the bad guy, to say, don't use this donor because of this, or don't match with this surrogates because of that. So, and the other part of the story is I just had a question that I think I answered on TikTok is like, well, is the embryology laboratory important to your surrogacy journey? And it was kind of like,
well, yes, as a matter of fact, it is.
The people that actually get you pregnant, you can say it's the medical clinic, but it's not even really the medical clinic. It's the IVF laboratory and the embryologist, the andrologist that do all that magic behind the scenes in the darkness, and then eventually have this little ball of cells that represents the hope of a child. It's an extrauterine embryo. And I say that really carefully based on what happened in Alabama recently.
Sure,
right?
absolutely.
An extrauterine embryo does not represent a child, right? It's the hope of a child. But those high-tech dream makers in the embryology laboratory are truly kind of the magicians. I will often say I'm a physician, not a magician, because you can't.
Sure.
But that being said, it does take this team to help you. And I think that that if you're getting really frustrated kind of with your team, I think you have to think about, well, how much of it is where you are, or it's not the right team as well, because
that matters.
There are kind of different ways of going through this process. I mean, I probably see 5 surrogates a week for medical screening, and some of them have gone through before, and some of them are like, I can't believe you spoke to me for 45 minutes because I've done surrogacy before and I had like a 15-minute consultation with the doctor and they just checked boxes. Right? So like everybody looks at things differently. I think because I'm a parent through this process, I'm like really personally invested in making sure that every surrogate that we clear, we really did our due diligence on.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So much to unpack. So one of the things, the mental health aspect of all of this is huge, right? Like before you even go down this road, you need to be ready. And then of course, now especially if you go the egg donor route, you're not only a parent, through IVF, but now you are a donor conceived child parent. And that comes with, a whole different aspect of things, like you said, as far as just telling their story. And, one of the things that you shared in the book was just your personal, journey with your son and his, kindergarten playground and things like that. How do you just personally navigate being a parent of a donor conceived child, and what does that look like, just then to now? I know you said age appropriate. So, how have you navigated that?
Well, we were advised appropriately to practice your story while your child's in your arms.
Yeah.
You get good at it, right? And the story that begins like, Papa and Daddy really wanted to have a baby. Two boys can't have a baby.
Mm-hmm.
The help of somebody to give us some special cells. And then we had, in our case, Miss Lisa carry you in her tummy, right? And, getting good at that story says that when a question comes up, it just rolls off your tongue. Because, your children are going to know every little chink in your armor. So they're going to be able to see if you're sweating. So that's kind of the start of it, right? And now that we have 10 and 12-year-olds, we just kind of I'll just bring up little nuggets kind of casually. so sadly, most recently, my mom passed away, and we were driving
Oh,
back
I'm sorry.
from her funeral and so on. And I was just in the car with both of them, and we were talking about. I said, you guys, how we've talked about the donor before and so on, but understand that she's a very special person to our family, and she might have her own kids now.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys might have a bigger family because they were sad that they lost a family member, right?
Of course.
And so my 12-year-old said, wow, I might have a sister.
Mm.
And my 10-year-old said, oh, great, because I don't like my brother, right? So but they processed that they might have other half siblings out there, right?
Sure.
And then, I said in that car trip, like, well, I'm tired of calling her our donor, right?
Okay.
We need to call her something else. And the 10-year-old said, well, we should call her our fairy godmother, which I thought was awesome. Like, I could not have come up with that, right?
I love that.
So they've kind of processed that. And, my 10-year-old is a little bit of a soccer player, and we shared with him recently that our donor was a soccer player. He was like, oh, that's cool.
Cool, yeah.
12-year-old, we were talking about how, she reported like being very artistic and so on, and he really likes art. So like these little nuggets kind of further enrich the story, and they know that they were donor conceived, but you always have to remind them because, even for my 12-year-old, he's had people, say, well, you must have been adopted and somebody gave you away.
Right.
And so we reinforce the conversation of, well, that's not the case. So those people don't understand there's lots of different ways for people to be a family.
Right. And it just reinforces that phrase of like, no, very much built with intention.
Yeah, and I think that they have to process it on their own, and you have to drop little nuggets in and pique their interest, because we're all a little self-absorbed, but when you're like 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, maybe until you get to be like 25, it's just all about you, right?
Absolutely, yeah. We're very egocentric.
So I hope that helps. I mean, I encourage everybody, even if you haven't said anything to your kids yet, if you do have a donor conceived person, you need to step up and get there, because we do know that people who find out through 23andMe,
absolutely,
or from Aunt Esther saying, well, your mom's not really your mom, she used an egg donor, like that's devastating, because the person that you've trusted the most your whole life, your parent, did not tell you who you are, right? And I get it, maybe there's so internalized grief and shame and fear of not being loved and them not recognizing you as a parent. But to be a parent is a verb. You must parent.
Sure.
To be a mother is not about genetics, it's to care. To be a father is to care and raise a child. So when I'm very careful with those words, because, and some people will call their egg donor the mother, and no, this woman who donated her eggs had no desire to be a mother. She had a desire to help other people be parents. And that, because it is really important to make you have those words kind of essential in a donor conceived family, right? So
sure,
we have 2 dads in our family, so our kids will be like, no, I don't have a mom, just like blithely kind of let it roll off, and
sure,
sometimes the adults will be like, what, right? But because the kids were nonplussed about it, they're just going about their business, right? So
absolutely.
I think that even in heterosexual, opposite sex couples, there's different family arrangements. There's single dad families, single mom families, divorced mom families, step parent families. I mean, the divorce rate in the United States now is upwards of 50%. So there's actually very few like Beaver Cleaver nuclear families out there.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? So
absolutely.
recognizing that, talking to your kids, that families come in all different shapes and sizes, and it's all about love and caring for each other, and mutual respect, I think, is where to go. And
Right. Yeah.
regarding talking to your kids, you have to tell them an age appropriate version of the truth, and they need to know the truth.
Mm.
You probably already realized from this podcast, sometimes I talk too much because
no, you're good.
Sometimes my husband will be like,
"Oh, very nice, Greg. Just a slow end scene." Yes. No, I love it. No, but you're so right, and it is such it reinforces again. It's that mental health aspect. It's that emotional aspect. It's not just science and point A to point B. I mean, and not to say that the science is simple, but the emotional aspect is an extra layer that is really important and is so important for the healthcare provider and the whole team to be aware of and take into account as you're figuring out and identifying what makes the most sense for that particular person's journey, right? Like that level of care. One of the things you brought up was, the 23andMe and all of that. The word is not used anymore, but anonymous is not a thing, right? Like unidentified is a thing, but there's no such thing as anonymity anymore. So, I mean, what would you say? I know the medical aspect of it, right? Like you were saying, hey, if you can find a donor that's willing to do a known cycle, that's even better because of the changes that can happen with medical history and just things like that. What other, things would you say as far as just that you have the medical side of it, but then that emotional side of the known donor, right? Like I know in talking to you, some donor conceived people, the words, right? Like you said, biomom is not a word that you like. I talked to a donor conceived person and she refers to her donor as biomom, but she's comfortable with that, right? So
everybody's going to find their own
right.
version, right?
Yeah. So what would you say, just that emotional aspect as a parent of, it sounds like you used, again, not anonymous, unidentified, how have you kind of navigated that emotional aspect from a parent? And then it sounds like your kids kind of take the lead on some of that too.
In our journey back in 2008, there weren't a lot of known donors. So
exactly.
We have an anonymous donor that has an identity release at the age of 18 if the kids want to know, right? What I've learned over the years is that when people have the opportunity to meet their donor, and it doesn't have to be exchanging phone numbers and going to lunch. It's just like a Zoom that maybe remains anonymous, because that's driving home the point that there is no anonymity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anybody could probably find their donor within 10 clicks, right? If they try.
Absolutely, yeah.
With that being said, having a conversation about meeting someone, I think, relieves so much stress and helps people feel more comfortable about the process. And it also will give you the opportunity to say, we met them and we liked the way they smiled and we liked their laugh, right? I think a lot of the donor websites now have pretty good video on top of pictures. Right?
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
That's also really important. But, I think that there's a lot of anxiety about finding this person that's going to kind of be part of your family genetically for the rest of your life. So why not, if you can, meet them? Now, if they don't want to meet you, that doesn't mean you can't use them, right? But if the door is open, take a walk through that door. I do have people who match, and they then go back to the agency and ask if they're willing to do a non-identifying Zoom. And at our clinic, we moved from an anonymous program to a known program. And when we asked our donors, 20 to 30-year-old donors, if they're willing to be known, 95% of them said yes.
Absolutely.
And they would like to know where their eggs are going to. So we had an anonymous egg donation program, right? That now is known, right? So I think that this is all part of your story. And I try to stress that it's not a job interview, right? And it's bilateral. So, if the donor doesn't like you, they might say, but that's okay too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. No, it so is. It so is. I mean, that's one of the, our agency has, this known donor program that we really are, push forward because we so badly want for everybody to, not only is that medical aspect of it, but to be a part, to be invested and to, and to know it is part of your story. And that's important. And it's not something, like you said, it's not shameful. It is.
Yeah.
And, but on both sides, you've got to get there. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's so, yeah. Yes. No, absolutely. Absolutely. So, okay, here's something that and you and I were talking about this a little prior to, hitting the record button, but, I have a very love-hate relationship with, just technology, specifically the internet, and that gorgeous double-edged sword that is Dr. Google and Dr. Facebook. Yeah. What obviously with GayParentsToBe.com and then your book, Building Your Family, it's kind of, it mitigates this idea of like, hey, you don't just Google infertility and then you have, a gazillion pages, right? But what would you say, maybe for those who are hungry for a little bit more, what would you say is some of those reliable resources that you, as, just a parent through this process, as well as just a physician, that you would say, hey, this is probably a really good route to go?
Well, just like, unfortunately, Dr. Google is information without perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And medicine right now is all about personalization and perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't necessarily get that without talking to somebody who has experience. But as far as reliable resources, Resolve
Yes.
New England, those
Yes.
are reliable resources with vetted information. Many of the surrogacy websites, as far as the information about the process, is also reliable and useful, and so on. Regarding kind of, for dads to be, there's Men Having Babies and Gays with Kids.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot. There's a queer family podcast out there that's helpful by Jamie Skelton. So there's a lot of resources out there for anybody to move through. Lisa Schuman, who I wrote the book with, has a wonderful podcast from the Center for Family Building. So I think that as you try to collect your information, always look behind the scenes, right? So, the reality is there is kind of this medical industrial complex, right? And people are trying to get you to sign on with them. But I think it's important that you talk to many different providers and see what fits, right? I'm not for everybody. I'm a little bit blunt. I'm a little bit, I'll tell you the way it goes. And, sometimes, I'm not as, sensitive to my patients as I should be, right? So, so some people like that because they always know where they stand, right?
Absolutely.
One of my partners who I worked with for 20 years, like, I'll frankly say he's much nicer than I am. Right? So you have to figure out what works for you, right?
Yeah.
And, so I think that as you go down the process, I think you should think of like internet resources as kind of your step to something that is more personalized.
I like that. I like that a lot. Absolutely. No, that's fantastic. I love that.
One thing that's really important is your friends or your family may have a story to share with you, but it's usually not that helpful. And it probably isn't personalized. And everybody's little words of advice, I think you have to take are little drops of love because they want you to succeed. But take it and process it and understand that you need to see a provider that knows what to do.
Right. It comes from a place of love, but let's also go to the expert as well. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. What, so one of the things that I so incredibly related to. It was in the very beginning, you and Lisa, just remarked how, we work for the baby pictures, right? And I so relate to that. I so relate to that. What would you say, just gets, I mean, you said it, this is your passion, but what would you say, just like gets you excited about coming to work every day?
I think that, we're taking hopes and dreams and working to make them reality, right?
Yeah.
And, we're kind of the assistants to this amazing process. And, my work is challenging. There are days that I get baby pictures, and there are days that people have a miscarriage, or maybe
Right.
their third miscarriage, and so on. So we're on this kind of steep roller coaster. True story, this morning I woke up and I looked at my phone, and I have an email from a patient that's been to 4 other fertility clinics. She doesn't have a lot of eggs, and she thanked everybody in the office for just taking care of her. So, as a caregiver, that's kind of what fuels my engine, right? So I think that those recognizing kind of that the ability to touch other human souls and to give them support is what helps me get to work. And I think I want to encourage everybody out there, because I think we do need more kindness in the world. If you are thankful for somebody who helped you on your journey, please thank them, because that actually means a lot to us.
Yes.
And so,
yes. I can reiterate that for sure.
I think, the energizing aspect of taking care of other humans is like, this is life-changing stuff,
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. No, you're so right. Because it doesn't always have a happy ending, but but the passion and the desire to get there is still there. And it gets me going personally, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I will end with this. For anyone who knows me, they know that I have a very codependent relationship with coffee. And so I always like to ask, and I think you kind of alluded to it, but what literally or figuratively filled your cup this morning?
Well, that email filled my cup.
Yeah, absolutely it did.
So, that was, and I took that email and I walked in, I showed it to 2 nurses who were sitting there waiting to take care of patients, and then I sent it to the whole practice.
Yeah.
Right? Like, this is what we do, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I also start my day first person up, last person to bed usually, but I start my day with the double espresso machine, let the dog out, and so on. But I think that knowing that 9 million people walk this earth because of this technology, right? I think that right now, there is this concern about restriction of access to care.
Absolutely.
That we all have to kind of, vote with our hands, like literally, make sure people understand that we want access to this amazing technology, and that there is this kind of steep attrition rate from eggs down to embryos, and not every embryo works, and we want to be able to have that access to care. So I think that what fills my cup is the opportunity to give people this incredible gift, or get them to the point that they know they did everything they could. And so this is a big deal. We are like what I do, and the hundreds of fertility clinics all across the country do is so personal.
Yes.
And people are so vulnerable, and there are so many fears, sometimes real or unreal, that need to be addressed. So taking the time to just get to know your patients, and and make sure that you have the team around you, because I can't function without nurses, medical assistants, technologists. Everybody's kind of working together, and I think for the patients out there, you guys need to know that every day we get not one pregnancy test, but 20, right?
Sure.
And we're on that same roller coaster that you are.
Yeah.
Like, and so we're as close into it as we can be, but we're all on your side and we all want you to succeed. And this is life-changing technology that has just brought so much to the world, right? So I don't know if you're aware that like Elizabeth Carr, the first IVF baby in the United States, was at the State of the Union last night, right?
Yes, she was. Yes.
So it's kind of crazy, right? Regarding kind of this book, I think I'm proud of it. I think it is a really good resource. If you're thinking about donor conception, there's something in there for everyone. If you already have a donor conceived child, the last few chapters are actually really helpful.
They're fantastic.
Talking about talking to your child as well. So, I hope people find it useful. It is, I don't know, it's on Audible and a real book and so on and so on. But I think I would encourage everybody to be kind to each other, appreciate, in the dedication in the book here is, this book is dedicated to those who have helped millions bring children into their lives and to a future where family building help can be accessible to all. To my husband and children who have changed me forever, and the 3 amazing women who rock, my family.
Your
so
family.
This is humanity, right? This is what we want. We want this expression of humanity, which is like just amazing that we can do this.
Yeah. No, I love that. Oh, I love that so much. So this question came to mind as you were talking. It's so important to have that team. It's so important to be represented and to have that, like you said, it's personalized. Right. So when you are building that team, whether it's your clinic, your attorney, your agency, I would also jump on the fact, if you at any point in time feel like a number, that's not the right spot for you. You should never feel like a number. And so those questions, especially from that agency perspective where I sit in and I, talk to gestational carriers who have felt like a number when looking at other agencies, or intended parents who are like, I can't get anybody to talk to talk back to me, but they've already taken $15,000 from me.
Right.
That's not a position that you need to be in. And so it's worth it to do a little bit of that extra go along, because that team is so important because of that humanity aspect.
Yeah. I mean, I think that it would be nice if everybody had the opportunity to independently find somebody who had worked with that agency before.
Yes.
To have an idea. Because obviously you're only going to get a referral from somebody that was happy. So sometimes you have to beat the bushes a little bit.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Dr. L, I super appreciate your time and your vulnerability and, just your passion and, a thing that I personally am just so passionate about, but our listeners and the help that you do and just all of the things you do specifically with the LGBTQIA+ community, but just in general for those who are all receiving, just care as they are building their families. So thank you again, just so much.
Brittany,
for
thank
your
you.
time.
And now I have more podcasts to listen to.
There you go. That's exactly right.
Right. Good luck, everybody.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Me, You, and Who. We appreciate your time and hope you enjoyed our discussion today. As we wrap, we would like to remind you of some of the ways that you can stay connected with us and be part of the Me, You, and Who podcast community. Firstly, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode and can stay up to date with our latest content. But that's not all. We also have an exciting YouTube channel where we share some bonus content, behind the scenes glimpses, and video versions of our episodes. Head over to YouTube and hit that subscribe button there as well. And don't forget to click the notification bell so you'll be the first to know when the new episodes go live. And for more exclusive updates, engaging discussions, and a chance to connect with fellow listeners. Be sure to follow us on our social media accounts. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Create a Happy Family. If you're interested in finding out more about creating a happy family, please visit us at www.createahappyfamily.com. Thank you again for being part of the Me, You, and Who community. Your support means the world to us. I can't wait for you to join us next time as we continue to share stories and journeys of creating happy families.